What's up, everyone, and welcome to Project X Talk Extra, your weekly podcast supplement from Project X Talk, where we discuss news, TV shows, whatever we want that didn't quite make the main show. As usual, this is our weekly Halo episode recap. Today, we're taking a look at episode number 7. Yes, 7, Ethan. It is 7. You got me confused. I was doubting myself for a second there, but I am your host, Kevin, aka the Muffin Mon, and I'm joined as always by Mr. Physical Copy himself, Ethan. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing good, Kevin. It's a nice, cool 91 here in Texas today, as
Ooh,
opposed to the 100 it was yesterday. So it's nice and cool outside. I'm ready to
that's
go.
looking forward to the weather here in New York. We gradually are increasing. Today is like mid 60s, full sun, so it's a
Oh,
little warm, but
that's
like
beautiful.
comfortable. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
beautiful out.
wonderful.
Tomorrow we go into the 70s, and then we slow Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 86, 87. I'm like, oh my lord, I'm gonna have to bust the AC out. But
Yeah, I'm already in sweat season, as I like to call it. In the next 6 months, I'm just going to be sweaty, and I'm just going to have to accept it.
it's one of those things where like right now I'm like I'll just get a little fan when I'm playing some games on
Yeah,
me to be comfortable. But once you get above a certain temperature, I fully understand that like maybe I gotta stand up at certain points just to shake off, you know what I'm
just to
talking
shake
about?
off. Yeah,
Shake off.
like a dog,
Sounds
just
so
shake off.
gross. I don't mean like sweat, like I'm not like like dog. Oh my god.
Hey, at
Anyway.
least you're not freezing to death in your recording room anymore.
True.
True.
Although I think sweating to death is probably worse.
A little worse.
I
Yeah.
will always prefer being cold. But anyway, 2 minutes in, we have yet to talk about Halo.
I know.
Guys, Halo episode 7. Ethan, this episode was all about Quan Ha.
Yeah.
And before we get into it, obviously full spoilers are in effect as for all our episodes. But what were your overall impressions of this episode?
So at the beginning, I was getting a little worried. Things weren't progressing the way I really wanted it to. The storyline, I thought it was just going to be a generic fight for the freedom of Madrigal or whatever, and it was a storyline that I wasn't necessarily interested in during the beginning. But once we got into it, once she met up with the desert wizards, whatever you want to call them, I don't know, the desert wizards,
The sand people.
the sand people, the Tusken Raiders, but no. Once they introduced the monitor, we got to see a glimpse of a Forerunner monitor, and I started seeing where they're going with it and how they're really going to connect this to the main storyline. At least I hope they will. It got me a little more excited about this storyline. And also, I think we saw a lot of character development from Quan Ha in this episode that we didn't get in the rest of the season that I really enjoyed. We actually saw her step up and become a fighter. So overall, fairly positive with this episode. Started really slow because I was worried. I was just like, they're just going to focus on this whole thing that I don't really care about. But they really threw some curveballs at us that I really enjoyed.
That's interesting because for me, I did not enjoy this episode
I figured.
at all. Is this the worst episode in the series? No, not by a long shot.
No.
I think episode 2, maybe 4 are probably worse than
those
this.
are contenders.
And that's simply because we did get like another good action set piece.
Yep.
Which kept what was that? Oh man, I just heard. Maybe that was on my end. I heard like some ad playing. Anyway, behind the scenes here,
we're showing ads now here on Project.
Yeah, we're showing ads. Manscaped. All right. Use code XTalk for 0% off your order.
Hey, one day.
Wow. I'll take a Manscaped ad.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, we don't do that. I'll take a Manscaped ad. But anyway, yeah, we got a good action set piece, I think. Specifically with Soren and Quan Ha and the whole, fighting against the I forget the Kincher, is that his name? The evil guy.
Venture.
Yes.
A wannabe neo-Nazi.
I hate him so much. We'll get into it. But overall, I feel like it's just more of I don't care about Quan Ha. I want her to go away. The sooner we transition away from this character, the better. I will say, yes, I think that they're, as we all suspected, they're tying her story to Master Chief's story. And they kind of reference that like, oh, don't worry, he's going to be coming back. So like they're going to interact at some point. There's 3 episodes left. Probably, maybe next episode, maybe the episode after that, depending on how like where we want to get to with this season.
Yeah.
But if we want to go through the actual recap of the story for this episode, and I watched it a few days ago, so I'll do my best to remember here. But I believe it starts with Kwan Ha driving through the desert in her buggy that she stole
driving
from.
through a sandstorm with
Yes.
no windshield, no goggles, and perfectly fine.
Yeah, just whatever. My eyes wide open. She's like, I'm going right in.
Good to go.
She drives into a giant sandstorm. She sees a shadowy figure, hops out of the car, and proceeds to get kidnapped by the desert wizards, as we'll call them. She gets all mad, like, "Who are you people? My father came to see you. Tell me what you told him." And they're like, "No." And she's just getting all mad all the time, like, "No, I'm ready. Give me, tell me it." Yeah, and this is like where this part of the story is where I'm like, this is you just being an annoying brat. Like, I can't deal with this.
That's
like,
kind of been her character up until this point.
Yeah. So eventually the desert wizard's like, all right, I'm gonna let you go on a quest, and makes her drink some nasty drink.
Yep.
And she sends her on some vision quest, right?
She took the peyote.
Yeah, took the peyote.
She's tripping.
She goes on a vision quest, and I think is it in between here that we're getting like flashback sequences of her before, like arguing with her dad. When does that come in? Because
I think that comes later, because after the drink, she gets into the whole scene fighting Master Chief.
Okay, all right, yeah. So she takes a drink, and she is like, oh, Master Chief shows up. She's following him through. It's basically the desert people's area, and they're like, you gotta fight him. And she's like, what? And then she proceeds to fight him and get easily murdered every single time, like a punch, just absolutely demolished, until she eventually like screams in frustration. Like, obviously she can't beat Master Chief.
Right.
So she screams, and that kind of signifies like she's learned like her rage isn't going to get her anywhere, right? Like, that's how I took it.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way of looking at it, because I was about to make a point. I'm like, I just don't see the point of that entire scene, but now that you brought that up, I think that is probably what they wanted us to take away from it.
That's what I thought, because she kept trying to use brute force against Master Chief, because
right, like that was gonna work.
Yeah, like she was so angry, like it would somehow like get her through the fight, and eventually she just realized like, I'm not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, and that's been her whole motivation. Basically, this entire series has been her rage at her father dying, and Venture taking over Madrigal.
So she loses Master Chief, and then continues her little vision quest here. And she eventually ends up at some sort of like, almost looks like a well, right? Like,
yeah, it is a well.
Yeah, and here we see like a monitor, a 343 Guilty Spark-esque character, if you will, pop out of it and then go back down briefly. If you look away, you'll probably miss it. But then her ancestors start like fading, and this was a pretty cool
I thought
effect.
That was cool. Yeah,
it was a pretty cool effect. How like the ancestor walked forward and it just like went through her lineage until it got to her father, and then she was able to like discuss with her dad and kind of make amends, like, I'm sorry, and like kind of I don't know, it was like closure for her, I felt.
Exactly. It kind of wrapped up that whole little emotional arc of hers.
And where did we go from here? Do you remember? Because I'm drawing a blank after this. He tells her Master Chief's going to come back to the well, and that she needs to open a portal for him, right? Basically, like,
they told her that she needs to go to where it all began,
right? Which
was the first episode's battle scene where her father got killed.
Kind of on the nose there, right? Like, where it all began, I feel like it should have been like, I thought she was going to go to this well or whatever, like in real life.
Yeah, I thought we were actually going to get some look at some Forerunner stuff here, but no, they just went back there to the. Yeah, it's kind of random.
She goes back there to where it all began, and I think in between this we get like flashback sequences of her and her family, who she didn't really like support the revolution, it seemed like.
Yeah, she just assumed that it was selfishness on her father's part, and that nothing was actually going to change. But obviously she didn't know about the whole being a protector thing, that these desert witches were telling her about and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we see I believe the kid from the first episode that like got murdered through the energy sword through the back, him joining and talking to Kwan Ha. and basically being like, I'm here to fight. And she just calls him out like, okay, then
Just
what?
crapping on his hopes and
Yeah.
dreams.
What happens after you win? You gonna go back to being an oil digger? Like,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I
Like,
don't know. Leave me alone.
I haven't thought about it that far, bro. Like,
Yeah.
chill, Quan. So Quan leaves the dinner, and we're also getting apparently, which I initially thought were flashbacks, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Apparently, after Quan Ha knocked Soren out, he was able to get a ship, leave, go home, have a bunch of like
Yeah.
excursions.
Yeah, he had like a nice dinners and stuff like that.
Party.
Like he was just back to being his regular self. They had no explanation on how he escaped Madrigal after
No.
being literally knocked out and all of his stuff being stolen from him.
Absolutely. I'm like, that's why I thought it was a flashback and he
Yeah.
was gonna like pop to, but like, no, then he's talking to his wife and she's like, they raised Quan Ha's bounty, and then he's like, I gotta go get her base. I'm like, wait, this is happening while she's dry, like all of this. You went on some sort of pirate mission. You yelled at
Yeah.
a dude at a party. You went on a pirate mission. Like, how long did you leave Quan Ha for? Because from what I can tell, like it's been a few hours for her,
Right.
and for you, it's been like a week.
Like I'm
So,
assuming that scene of her actually driving into the sandstorm is right after she had left him.
knocks him out.
Knocked
Yeah.
out. Yeah, so that time period, yeah, it doesn't really matter unless she was in that tripping state for a while, with the desert witches. Who knows?
Possible, but this seems very unlikely to me. Like
Yeah.
it just, I think this is a continuity error. Like it doesn't make any sense to me how
Yeah.
Soren had all this. We can touch on Soren's little He basically gets into
Yeah.
a fight with his business partner,
One of his
and then
lieutenants or whatever, and he,
and
he has
teaches
to
him a
flex
lesson.
and teach him a lesson.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it was pointless though. Like I was like, what is the first of all?
If I had to like try and grab something from that, I think
Mhm.
they were trying to show like, he's not as bad as, maybe we think. They showed him do a lot of bad stuff in that scene, in those scenes and stuff when he was just alone. But then obviously his morals take control and he goes back to help Quan Ha. But I just don't necessarily think that was needed because that was my vision of him already. That
Mhm.
he was tough on the exterior, but deep inside he knew he would do the right thing.
Yeah, that's what I've always thought of him as. And to be honest, this little side story with him made me not like him as much. Like I thought he was kind of a
being
douche.
weird.
He
Like
was a douche to
he
people.
was saying all those dumb stories, like embellishing stories with all those rich people, and then talking about how much he loved his wife and kids, and then
Mhm.
grabbing arms with that random woman at the party and stuff. It was just like, you're just dirty and weird.
Yeah,
I don't know.
not
Halo
a
seems to
fan.
be doing this with a lot of characters where they just do things that I don't feel are necessary and kind of ruining my
Mhm.
image of them. It happened with
Mhm.
Dr. Halsey's assistant, and it's kind of happened with Soren in this episode. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on with that.
No,
But
I don't think this is a good look. But he goes back to help Quan Ha. Magically, Deus Ex Machina shows up where she is.
just
Somehow.
teleports.
Yeah, he's like pops out behind a corner. Like,
Yep.
This is a giant planet, and you're like, I know where she is. Like, and
Yeah.
then he's like, if I could find you, like, Venture's on the way, and I'm like,
Yeah.
in what world is this happening?
I don't know.
Yeah. So, but Venture has got Venture cornered her aunt, Quan Ha's aunt in the market. Was like, tell me where she is. Ha 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 ha. I need to get her. Ha ha. Like, oh my god. Yeah, literally, he's a cartoon. The worst actor in
cartoon
this
villain.
show. Worst actor in this show.
Smoking
Oh my Lord.
cigars and like doing all this weird stuff. It's funny.
I don't know what the director was like. You're nailing this. Like,
You
I'd be like, you're fired. Get off my set. I'm gonna
Oh.
hop in there, do a better job.
Yeah.
Because literally terrible. Every time the guy was
He's
on
like a
screen.
cartoon Gestapo officer from 1960s Disney or something like that. That's
Seriously.
literally what he is.
I'm literally expecting Popeye to pop out, throw some spinach, and just like
sock him in the
hustle
face.
with him. It's dumb as
It's
my
goofy. And those
God.
little glasses, those tiny little John Lennon glasses, they're so funny.
he threatens her aunt, and then eventually she's like, I don't know anything, and I wouldn't tell you if I did. And then
Yeah.
his lieutenant is like, oh, we got a ping. Apparently they were tracking the old site where everything started and
Yeah.
know that Quan Ha's in there.
Yep.
And he's like, all right, you can leave, and then kills the ant as she's walking away.
Saw
Shoots her
that
in the
coming a
back.
mile away.
First of all, I ain't turning my back to you, bro. Like,
No.
kind of a rookie move there.
Like, I
But,
knew she was dead the minute she got pulled aside. I was like, well, that's the end of her.
but also, is it really a big loss? Like, do I care?
I mean, nobody really cares in the long run, you know.
Nobody cares, right?
Because
Like,
wasn't she kind of was a coward when Quan Ha came back? Her and
mhm,
pretty much everyone else that dealt with her father, because they were all like, just give up, get away
mhm,
from here. You shouldn't be here. Like
yeah.
it's over, you know. So
Yeah.
it was like, whatever.
So Venture and his men set off to the first episode location to get Quan Ha, and Quan Ha is there. Why is she there? I totally forget why she went there to do something.
Well, yeah, the desert witches just told her
They
go to
told her,
where
but
yeah,
why?
I don't know. You know, this is one of those like destiny things. Like, you know, I think
Mm,
she's just believing. I mean, to be fair, she saw a vision of her father and had a conversation with him. I would just believe whatever these women were telling me out in the desert at this point. So I guess it makes sense that she's
I,
there. She's just like, I'll go there and see what happens. I don't
but
know.
what is she? But what is she gonna do? She's just gonna sit there until Master Chief shows up?
I'm
Like,
wondering if it was like, I'm wondering if they guided her there because they knew that Vishnu would come and she could deal with it, you know, during that, you know, interaction. But I don't
it's
know. That's my
possible.
best guess.
Because anyway, she's talking to Soren, and then Venture shows up, is like, "Give us the girl. I loved your father. Like, no, I won't hurt you. I promise." And I was like, "Bro, even I don't believe you. Like,
Yeah, nobody
you don't,
believes you.
you don't
What's the
sound
point?
convincing at all." She tells him like, "Screw you. That ain't happening." And comes up with a plan with Soren. Like, we're just gonna hide in the bomb shelter we hid in episode 1 and
Yep.
blow the place up because
Yep.
this is where all the gas is, right?
Which, by the way, now that I'm thinking of it, that place wasn't like cleaned up after the battle. Where did the bodies
No.
of like the entire village go when the
There,
elite shot him? Remember in that bunker?
there were a bunch of Covenant bodies. Like you saw elites around on
Yeah.
the ground,
All
but
the
I
humans were
don't know
gone
where
though.
I don't know where the Marine, like, did the UNSC come up, grab the
Maybe.
humans, and be
That
like,
could be
oh,
it.
we're gonna leave the Covenant here. No
Yeah.
one's ever coming
Nobody
back here.
cares.
Yeah, no, that was a weird thing for sure. But she tries to turn on the oxygen or the gas. It doesn't
Hydrogen
work.
gas, yeah.
Hydrogen gas, that's what it is. And it doesn't work. So she's like, I know I gotta go turn it on at the base. And Soren's like,
Mhm.
you're gonna get killed. And she's like, nah, I know a secret tunnel, and like pops open this conveniently like 2 inches from her. I'm like, okay,
And
good.
gives Soren a big briefcase of money.
Yeah, it gives him like, here's the money I owe you. Here's your gun back. Here's your
Yep.
gold gun. Save some bullets, even though you can, start shooting people. So
Yep.
she's making her way through the tunnel. He starts so I start blasting. All right.
Yeah, it was like a Wild West fight. It was cool watching Soren actually just take out the revolver and bam, 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 you know, hitting people, hip firing, headshots, stuff like that. It was like
Yeah.
a fun little Wild West moment there.
For me, this was the best part of the episode. Like,
Yeah.
this action scene, because I
Yeah.
think Soren, it kind of made him look badass. Like, if
yeah.
we're being honest, like he was
Really
just
cool.
blasting people. And Quan Ha gets to the thing. She has to fight off a few people, and they show us the plasma grenade, right?
Right. That
Because
was cool.
she grabs it off the ground, throws it on a dude back, and he's like
What is
freaking
this?
out. And I can't reach it, and then just explodes. And I was like,
Gnarly.
that was really good.
Yeah.
All right, I like that. So she turns on the gas. Soren gets shot in the neck by Venture. Great shot, by the way.
Yeah.
Dead eye. I can see why this guy's in charge. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
It might be a crazy cartoon villain,
It's
but
those little John Lennon glasses. They're
he's
little aiming.
clearly out of the shooting range practicing.
Yeah.
So doesn't do much to Soren. Like, he's like, my neck. Like, okay, I'm gonna keep going. She saves Quan Ha saves Soren by grabbing an assault rifle and blasting the big tanker.
Yep.
And Soren and her are able to get into the bunker while the thing explodes and obliterates everyone, Venture included. So seems like he's dead, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. A hydrogen explosion of that size, he's vaporized at that point. He's gone.
But also, did you love how much I did that the explosion stopped just inches from them? Like, they were all the way in the back of the bunker, and
They
the
are very
fire
lucky.
bursts in through the doors and just stops right before it hits them. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow.
They are very lucky. And I didn't know if you noticed like the big spire in the middle. As it was exploding, it was kind of launching the spire into the sky like a
No, I didn't.
rocket. It was really cool. And then it would just explode higher and higher. It was really cool. I love that whole action sequence.
Um, and is that the end of? I mean, Soren leaves. He's like, "Thanks for the money. I'm a head out now. I don't really want to fight your worthless war." And Quan Ha's like, "I think you do." So like maybe he'll come back at some point, but
Yeah, they left a lot of things open, and there's some jokes at the end, and then they pan to the desert witches watching that explosion or whatever, and smiling because I guess they knew they did their job correctly. But that's really where it ended.
So not for me, not really an episode that moved much along. Like we got Quan Ha taking care of her issue, but also I just kind of wish this didn't exist in the first place. Like
Yeah, we're
that's where
kind of
I'm
at
at.
a point now where pretty much all there is left for Quan Ha to do is discover what this portal is, what this Forerunner monitor is. I'm assuming that she's going to talk to the monitor at some point in the next couple episodes for this season, and yeah, we'll see how it ties in from here.
Do you think that we actually get to Halo, like our Halo ring this season? Because at this pace, I don't see us. Maybe the last shot of episode 10 is like Chief arriving on a Halo ring.
That's what I was gonna say. I think they're gonna leave it on that cliffhanger of okay, we're at the Halo. Where do we go from here? And I think we're gonna see a lot of interaction between whatever this Forerunner monitor is and Quan Ha for the remainder of the episodes, and we're gonna see obviously Master Chief continue to progress, trying to find all the keystones and the actual thing that fits him and all that stuff.
It just felt like the momentum the show had, right? Because like episode 5 and 6 was pretty. They're both pretty good.
Yes.
It felt like the momentum came kind of to a halt here because we were having that good development with Chief. And then
Right.
the last episode ends with like him and McKee like having that vision of the Halo ring,
Mhm.
right? And then it just he's his the Master Chief armor is in this episode.
Yeah.
No lines of dialogue from Pablo. He
Right.
literally nothing. So like for me, it just kind of felt I don't understand why
So
they did this.
I think in order to have that momentum that you were talking about, we had to have that episode where it was nothing but focusing on Master Chief's story. And I think they had to have this episode to catch up on the Quan Ha story. They had to have a full episode for Quan Ha. So you could make the argument that maybe they should have just stuck to the traditional, going back and forth between these two timelines, and they could have wrapped both of these stories up. I could see the ending of last week's episode in addition to her meeting the monitor and that being an awesome ending to an episode. That would be an amazing ending. But I guess the direction they wanted to take it was to split up the episodes. But yeah, it kind of throws a wrench into the whole momentum for the Master Chief story.
I just I'm having issue like this episode, like I said, wasn't the worst. It didn't really do anything for me. I was kind of glad it was over. And to be honest, I probably fast forwarded through a little bit of it because I was like, this is a little painful
How dare
for me to. Nah, it was there was some stuff I was like, I can't really.
Well, I think the one thing we could take from this episode, though, is we got another awesome action sequence.
Yes,
Which just further
great.
proves how amazing this fight choreography is for this show. And I'm really excited for the future of different fights that we're going to see. And then, two, the introduction of an actual Forerunner monitor. That to me is the biggest takeaway from this episode. That to me is more interesting than anything on Madrigal, anything related to Quan Ha. I just want to know what this monitor is, how they talk. Like I just want to hear everything for this monitor. I want to see some Forerunner stuff be introduced.
Yeah, hopefully next episode we get back to Chief and like see the ramifications of his and him and McKee's like vision for the Halo ring and all that, because that's the much more interesting story for me here. I listen, I know I rag on Quan Ha all the time, but I kind of hope that we bring her story to an end and that she isn't going to be like season 2. Like I don't want a season 2 with her in it.
Yeah, I could see them wrapping up season 1 as her as the leader of Madrigal, a free independent Madrigal. Leave it at that, But the fact that we have a Forerunner installation on Madrigal tells me that there's gonna be more to it. Because I mean, where there's a monitor, there's an installation. So we gotta understand that this is going to be huge for the story.
I feel like that that well is going to be like a teleporter. I don't think that this
Could
is
be.
that's kind of how I'm seeing it. I don't see Madrigal being like a typical how we think of like oh there's a monitor like installate like
Right.
I think Master Chief's probably gonna like jump down that well and then get transported to a Halo ring or something like that.
Ooh, that would, because there are Forerunner monitors that are on Halo rings.
Yeah,
Like,
I could see
that's
I could see it
normal.
in my mind. Like he jumps down and
Yeah.
then a blue or some kind of light shines
Yeah.
out of it, and I'm like, yeah, all right,
And then
all
he's in
right.
that field again, looking around all stoically,
Yeah,
and
he's like,
then
I'm here.
roll credits. That's
Roll
the end of season
credits.
one.
Season one. Except they don't ever use the actual music, so
Yeah, they just change it up a little bit.
they're not gonna play that. Anything else left to say for me? Kind of a nothing episode. Not the worst, but not great.
Yeah, like I said, worth checking out for the fight sequences and just
Yeah.
being able to put eyes on a Forerunner monitor for the first time in this series, which I've been waiting for. Other than that, the stories of Quan Ha is kind of wrapped up. Madrigal is, I guess, free again. So
maybe watch this one at like 1.25 speed if you can. Something like that. You know, just move it along a little bit. But Ethan, where can they find you?
they can find me at White Cedar 1 on Twitter and Gravy3448 on Xbox.
And you can find me at the Muffin Mon. It's a 1 to 7 I and an O instead of an A. Follow us at Project X Talk on Twitter to stay up to date with all of our latest. And we have a Trek to Yomi giveaway going on right now.
Yup.
So make sure to check our Twitter for all the details on that. We are closing in on 400 subscribers, and that is tied to the giveaway. So if you want to check out Trek to Yomi on any platform, check out the giveaway. We will be back next week with episode 8 of Halo. But until then, goodbye.
Peace.